Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Miguel Perez. I am the head of the Phillips Collection. I'm the head of public programming for the Phillips Collection, sorry. And it is my pleasure to introduce you guys to tonight's program. So just kind of some ground rules first. Once the conversation starts, they will be talking, having a full program on their own. If you guys have any questions, you guys in the audience have any questions, please submit them through the Q&A function in the Zoom webinar, and we will get to them at the end of the evening. But we are really here to kind of hear from our speakers, and so we have the pleasure of welcoming Ms. Chelove to be a part of the Phillips Collection tonight, to be a part of our little family. We reached out to her to be a part of one of 12 artists that reimagined the logo of our Centennial year logo, and that'll be the first work that they explore tonight. Ms. Chelove is an independent artist, independent Washington, D.C. based art director, muralist designer, and illustrator. She is the former co-founder of the art interactive agency Protein Media. Her work reflects her multicultural background, rooted in the topical mysticism of Java, Indonesia, and her formative years of growing up in the punk, go-go, and graffiti-fueled streets of Washington, D.C. in the 80s and 90s. Tonight, Ms. Chelove is going to be joined by her longtime collaborator and friend Arijit Das. Arijit Das is a full-stack designer and entrepreneur with over 20 years of experience launching digital products. He is the founder and principal designer of Space and Flow, a product design practice specializing in new and pre-growing digital products. So it is over to you guys. Thank you both for being here tonight. Very excited for this. And I will stop talking and let you guys take over.
Yay, thank you, Miguel. My name is Sita Sadali, also known as Ms. Chelove. Playing a little Fela in the background right now. This is a little exploration of really the music that I grew up with, being on the DC streets, in the late 80s to 90s to beyond, but really enjoy having my friend and family member, Arijit, Space and Flow, here to talk about some of our history and touch on the Phillips logo redesign, of course, but just to have a nice relaxing chat together. So let me start by sharing my screen and I can show you the logo. So it's pretty cool. So the Phillips hired or invited 12 different artists to reimagine their logo. This is their 100th year, and it's a pretty big deal. So it was a huge honor. I love the Phillips Collection, specifically Wolfgang Leib's Wax Room. Really amazing artist, German artist, who both Arijit and I really enjoy. But if you haven't gotten down to the Phillips, please do. This is my submission. It's called A Breath Forward. And it's really inspired by a story I read about Duncan Phillips. When he was 4 years old, he had been traveling in France with his family, and he was watching some kind of a circus, and he basically got really freaked out because these clowns were were throwing these like dolls in the air, and he thought they were real. So he basically just started freaking out. After he had gotten back to the hotel with his family, he was still in hysterics apparently, and only upon gazing at this sort of simple collection of flowers that was in a vase in the lobby did he just start to calm down. And it was that moment that he realized that he had this powerful connection with color. There's 3 colors of the flowers that he was gazing at that I've used as the foundation of the design. They were specifically blue cornflowers, red poppies, and yellow buttercups. It's a very simple arrangement, but I think it's something that we can all relate to, just this, when life gets crazy or, you're not feeling too well, the power of nature to really rein things in and bring you back to that kind of square one. So it's that solidity that I was thinking about with this concept. Also, honestly, married with the the whole issue of gender equity in museums and in auction houses. I wanted to represent the female form. So using the hand, which is actually in a mudra, which is a practice of these different hand gestures and finger gestures to facilitate sort of the channeling of prana or chi in meditation and other practices. So this mudra is actually the Vitakara teaching or discussion mudra, which invites teachings for growth and awakening. She's also holding a calendula flower stem, which is a powerful herb renowned for its healing properties, as well as a sacred flower used in rituals and ceremonies from the ancient Greeks and Romans to present-day South Asia. The triangle has been a popular form, lately in graphic design, but I was just thinking about, sacred geometry and the solidity of the triangle and something to sort of like cool down all of these other shapes that I have going on. Of course, this whole project is not a traditional logo redesign, right? Like this has not gone through the rigors of a normal, branding project. This would not reproduce well at very tiny, size and other such things like that. So this is really, as I took it, meant to be a sort of fun exploration of this important institution and what it means for it to be around for this long and where is it going. So that's a little bit behind that. I thought it was a really cool exercise, and I actually wanted to throw it in some animation, but that didn't have the time to do that. But yeah, so I'm gonna stop screen sharing now and have a little chat with Arijit.
That's so cool that you mentioned Lade. Like he's so central. Now that you bring it up, like Miguel mentioned, we had our Protein Media, we built a company together, and the brand of that company was like the core color was yellow, and that was because of Labe's pollen work. Like he's been such a theme through both of our works for so many years. That's really cool to come back around.
Yeah, he would collect. I don't know if he still does it, but he would just spend months.
His lifetime. That collection of pollen that he has he reuses the same pollen every show. Like that's his lifetime's worth of pollen that he's collected.
And creates these big fields of just pollen.
Yeah.
And I think they did I remember right? They had some kind of a contraption where he hung from the ceiling, and he would just like with these tweezers, he would pick out all the little dust that would fall throughout the exhibition. It's just to see, we never see pollen in this high concentration, but just to see it, the tones and the depth of the color in this large field is just super cool. Anyway, he's got a piece there called the wax.
Yeah, I remember.
Entirely, created of wax, and as you step in, I mean, it's so simple, but it's just the smell hits you first, even before you've even gotten close to the room. It's super cool, super interesting. But anyway, it's so cool to hang out with you. I haven't really
it's been a minute.
seen you in a while. You're up in Brooklyn, but Arijit and I used to run Protein Media in Blagden Alley for over a decade. Before Blagden Alley was Blagden Alley. But yeah, when Fight Club was there, and
oh man,
a lot of
before
stuff was
Fight Club, right?
Yeah. Bill Worrell, his studios back there. Adamson Editions, they run, prints for Annie Leibovitz, Chuck Close, top name, really great guys. Skip from Reinhardt, is that his last name? From the Corcoran, used to have a printing studio there. Big arts building, which, as we know in DC, are they're dwindling fast.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any artists there now, but I don't think they can afford the $6,000 a month rent.
Right. I mean, it was a dream space. Like actually getting in there for the period that we were in there was amazing, especially with the history of that. Yeah, with the history of that building.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, I didn't get the chance to get you on the decks tonight to do the back and forth that we had planned on, but we'll do some little things here. Just one-sided this time.
It's all good. I'm excited to see what you have lined up. when there's so much?
Yeah. So I'm kind of in the middle of a lot these days, so I didn't get the chance to really like curate a lot of stuff, but I did post some things. Opened. We didn't have a lot of time with it, but the opened with Fela from Upside Down, Go Slow. One of my favorites. But what I'm going to do is start this presentation, and what we're going to do is kind of go through and play some tracks that kind of spark some memories with those places, those venues, musical venues in DC, and then go through some pieces of artwork that are actually either inspired by, well, it's all really inspired by that experience, but specific touch points from those spaces that link to specific pieces around DC public art, murals, and paintings. So let's do it. Oh, first, salutations and greetings. I have to light a little incense for the mood and get my relaxation on. It's been a tough weekend. I've been working all weekend, so this is like a nice little break for me.
Nice.
Okay.
This is that tea we always talk about having, but we're doing it on video with an
God.
audience now.
Yeah.
Nice.
Seriously. Okay, so the first place I want to give a shout out to is DC Space, and a venue that used to be called West Hall. WUST was a radio station. So I don't know if you noticed, but it's the new 930 Club now, but I think it still has a radio tower. I can't remember, but back in the day when I was like punk rock and skipping school and going to like a anti-nuclear protest or something like that, there was a Bad Brain show there. So I had skipped school and I was at the protests. And then after that, I walked back to West Hall with my friend who was skateboarding, and we just caught this incredible Bad Brain show. DC Space is also another venue that I'll touch on in a few more slides. But these are a few snapshots from my sort of earlier teens and late teens around early DC hardcore music, reggae, graffiti, and these sort of elements all coming together on the streets. It's kind of cool to just see like visual representations of these things. And God, I mean, if we had cameras back then, you know, like
Right.
we would have so much more media. It drives me nuts. But here's a few touch points from those scenes and cultures, with the exception of this one right here. It's the Rocksteady wall in Harlem. So that's not EDC. But,
Was that the one in 98 that we went up to?
Yeah. And then this right here.
Up at that one.
Yeah, this is on U Street right here. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but
was that aerosol?
Right. No, this is painting headphones. Lofty, DJ Lofty had this like clothing store near 16th and U, and I was painting the facade with 1.9. But yeah, so here's our studio, Blackman Alley. 926 N Street. Y'all, look at the square footage. I mean, come on.
It's a loft. Oh, that was a dream.
That'd be crazy. Like,
yeah, that was a dream.
Anyway, so
especially living in Brooklyn now, where I squoze out a 7 by about 12-foot space for like 2 artists plus like visual arts, DJing, and like clothing work. Like to see all this. Like,
So this is our studio, and this is only half of it. You know, there's a loft upstairs. You know, there's a lot to say about this. There are a lot of arts, you know, groups that were in this space, you know, in the whole building. This is only one small part of this building, 926 N Street rear in Blackman Alley. So my sister Lonnie worked, shout out to Lonnie if she's listening. Lonnie worked here, Arijit, me, a whole bunch of other great folks. This is the outside. It's now home to the DC Alley Museum, which is a collection of murals. It was, you know, funded by the Commission on the Arts and Humanities. I was given this doorway, the sort of taller one, to paint. And I wanted to pay homage to Bill Worrell, who's a really great artist that one of the longer residents in that building, because his family actually owned the DC Space, which is a venue near 7th and E that was just really great. They had, you know, performance art, they had go-go, they had punk rock, they had everybody there. And it was just, I had gone there in the earlier years when I was hanging out in DC as a preteen, but I just thought it was so cool that his family had owned that space. So I wanted to pay homage to him and some of the acts that came through, Bernie Worrell, Little Benny and the
Sun Ra.
Master, Sun Ra, The
Let
Last
him down the
Poet.
corner. Yeah.
Yeah. But this is the original sketch. He wasn't really, understandably, wasn't so comfortable having his face really huge on where he lived, you know. So I came up with this alternate version featuring Laurie Anderson on the left, HR from Bad Brains in the middle, and Joseph Boyes, one of Arijit's favorites, also on the right. Folks who had all, you know, either performed there, well, actually, yes, folks that, you know, who have all performed there. So that was the workaround design-wise for that. But, you know, leading into that, just, you know, the memory from, you know, seeing HR at West Hall, and then, you know, I didn't catch him at DC Space, but knowing he had performed there, it was just a cool little connection to make with that. Here's some more pictures of the final, and I'm gonna throw on a Bad Brains track. So Bad Brains was this, you know, group comprised of, you know, 4 African-American dudes. Some of them had lost, but they were like one of the best hardcore punk rock bands, whoever existed. But they also did, you know, perform reggae. And what was cool is you would see all of these folks showing up for shows, you know, all of these kind of aggressive men, like young boys, you know, that wanted to like slam and like crash. And then they throw on like the reggae tracks and they would just get so upset. I just thought it was the funniest thing. And I loved it. I really loved all of the reggae tunes. But this is one of their tracks. I Love Ija. It's from 1980.
You might want to kill the bass. I think it'd make it easier to hear. Yeah.
Can't help it, I got that bass.
Try to make me feel ashamed.
Feels me that we don't have enough time to really go into this catalog, but anyway, a little bit of Bad Brains there. I think in the interest of time, we shall proceed to the next one. So the next venue I want to give a shout out to is State of the Union, U Street. We've all been there. Some of us have DJ'd there, performed there, you know, from poetry to, b-boy, b-girling. I mean, come on
like
now.
That was the, like, I don't even know how to put it. That was like the nexus
It
of
was
so
the
much.
nexus.
It was.
It was the nexus. And, you know, there's so many genres caught there. You know, Stan Burns had a residency there on Sundays, and it's definitely church, as it always was. Rest in peace. We're all still very upset about that.
And it was a Russian restaurant. Like, there was a point where it was actually a working restaurant. Then they just gave up on that.
Yeah.
Right,
Here's a little video. This is produced by Words, Beats, and Life of Flex Matthews. It's a little quick intro, and it just shows the piece that I painted just across the alley from this club.
fresh to death of light, glowing in the cipher like a million lighters ain't nothing brighter. Yo, this is city life. Fresh form and clothing on my fly wants to get it right. From the limo riders to the one pushing city bikes. Young and get your tuck straight, sure to get your gown right. We camp below uptown Saturday night. Come on, dig me. I'm trying to paint it vivid as Da Vinci in the underpass, rocks and grass.
Hey, Flex. I mean, look at this picture. Come on, y'all. Come on. My God. Okay, so shout out to Flex Matthews. One day I will make you some Rice Krispie treats. I know you really like those. So the image on the right is Jack from Brian Liu, one of our favorite folks in DC, old music head and everything else. Now into film directing and such. Anyway, on the right you can see the old club and some, an old pint glass from the club. And there was a reunion. There were two of them. God, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, something like that. But all the old heads came back out, and it was a feeling that I could not ever describe.
Yeah. Wait, but hold up though. Hold up. I just noticed this. The wall in the alley is painted black. They painted over the mural in the alley.
They painted over everything. They keep, and now it's been renovated and it's getting ready to open. I don't know what's in there,
something's
but
finally coming in over there. Okay.
It's already been renovated. Yeah, it's gone.
Okay.
So
okay.
It's cool.
Because you had a piece up in that alley too, not just across the street. Like back in the day, because Aerosol, that's the thing 19 through.
In 1996, 19 threw a really, really great party there. It was an event with music. It was an exhibition. There were like Japanese cats that he invited that had like all this crazy artwork. There was Capoeira, Angola, Shaka, and Neko Gato were there. And Sila was there doing his Northern Shaolin Kung Fu. I mean, it was like, and we painted the alley just opposite. If you see this, the piece that I did here on the left, we painted just on the right, on the side of the state. So it was cool when I got this commission to come back and paint this in 2019. The muse for this piece is Jamila Okubo, one of my friends and a very beloved person, but also artist in DC who has come up through sort of hip hop education in Words, Beats, and Life, local hip hop nonprofit. And she's just become an amazing human being, but also really successful artist. We're all very proud of her. But it was just cool to come back to this space after spending so much time here on U Street, but in City of the Union. I mean, I even DJ'd the front room one New Year's Eve. It's wild. I mean, we've all that was our home,
But
so
you were,
really cool.
you were a regular there. Like when you and I first met, maybe around 96, you were doing a dance hall night with Hutchie in the front room there. Yeah, Hutchie used to chat and DJ, you DJ'd, yeah. Yeah,
Hutchie worked with, the 18th Street Lounge guys and I guess some of the other folks. He was like the resident, mic controller, from Jamaica. It's like really kind of a U-Roy style, kind of a classic style of chat. And he would come and bless the mic. And it was just, it was just so live, I forgot that I DJ'd those dance hall nights. I don't know, a lot of chapters, I guess. And thanks for reminding me.
Right.
But yeah, let's throw on some tracks. You mentioned, all right, I knew you were gonna you weren't gonna let me get away without playing this. All right. I guess I might have played this there too. This is Wayne Wonder on the Backyard.
Oh, snap. All right.
So I ain't gonna waste your time. All across the world, so I ain't gonna waste your time. Don't sit on the call. From Montana, she just sell me Japan. Three guns so strong, they look with fashion. Out the put out, the for something of the good child. You pop it on me, you just see who gets star. And this way, they love send me down. All class, I'm in the bar, reach too far. Then sit down the hall,
And that's what you do when you don't have two turntables. So you gotta just like echo it out a little bit, you know what I'm saying? And this
Yeah, whatever
one,
works.
shout out to Rumka, because I know this is like one of his favorites too. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Selena, don't become me but this is Selena. Dream come making is a Medina. She love me and she rate me as the best. Become me but this is Selena. Don't become me but this is Selena. Dream come making is a Medina. She love me and she rate me as the best. Become me but this is. I may say, hey, my baby love the singer, she don't wanna DJ. I only me alone can make she kick up and say, yeah. My lady come and check me every night and day. You hear what me say, but what me get me realize is that the woman love to see my smoky eyes. 'Cause even though it seem like me hypnotized, you get my dance and ready for the big surprise.
And I'm gonna have to dig up the tapes you used to make back then. Snap.
Oh, remember the tape I made? And you took it on the cruise with your Desi folks, and that became the party. Like they played it like oh Lord.
Took over.
Okay. So
Anyway.
I know we're short on time. I'm trying, folks.
I mean, State of the Union, you gotta pause there for a minute, because that was just like,
listen, once again, rest in peace to Sam Burns. We got something special cooking up. A tribute like you would not believe. And I can't wait to see that come to fruition. 411 New York Avenue. Let's talk about Sammy Stewart. Let's talk about his space, which is in the Union Arts Building, which has so many connections, you know, to DC with our art community and, you know, the elders, to the graph artists, to the, you know, the activist artists doing so much work. Shout out to Cesar. 411 Collective, you know, all the heads. Anyway, but before, back in the day, this was known as a, well, for us, we would go to parties here. This is a flyer I made for Chris Burns. He had booked Ron Trent. God, that was 2011. But one thing that I really love doing is creating, you know, flyer art, posters and stuff like that. So this is a fun little illustration project. I just pulled it up because it's connected to 411 New York Avenue. But Arijit and I spent a lot of time in there. Arijit actually erected, you know, one of his wonderful interactive sculptures there, the cloud, which is amazing. I can't wait for you to keep, you know, pushing that and like developing that idea. But it was just a haven, you know, it's a place where so many genres were booked here. So many things, so many adventures, you know, I can't even, yeah, it was just a very special place. It's now, I think it's sitting still, but it's definitely not an arts building anymore. I think it's gonna be a hotel. So a lot of good memories there. Did you have any, or did you want to share?
Oh man.
I'm gonna throw on a house track in the back.
Okay. I just remember it being like when all the warehouses started closing down, it was like the last spot that wasn't a club where you could go and get lost.
Going and get lost. Yes, that's exactly the point and the draw. You know, it's like these spaces, y'all. There, you know, there's a lot of like warehouses and abandoned spaces, and for folks that are into, you know, this type of underground music, there's such an appeal to just getting lost, and you know, you feel like it's a space all to your own, and it's a space for connecting and sharing energy, and it's something that's so necessary, you know. If you remember this one. So there's a bunch of artwork that I created nearby along the Metro Branch Trail. This is a collaboration between myself and Maspas from 2017, the Powwow Festival. I love the strength, you know, it reminds me of the energy that we had in those dark spaces, you know, and just, you know, having that opportunity to, as they call it, letting the beast out on the dance floor, you know? It's like, visuals that are so hard, but so rich and so soulful. This is called Water Protectors. I really like the portraits that I had painted. They're so statuesque and quiet, but so powerful at the same time, you know? Giving a shout out to our Kenilworth Aquatic Gardens with the lovely lotus. You know, they bloom from the mud, and it's just such a powerful thing when you think about people that don't have a lot of resources, you know, and they're still out here blooming and proud and noble.
Finding a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is another one just down the way. It's called Crossroads, and it's inspired by Japanese No theater, and H is how it's spelled. And you know, kids from the city that just, you know, they find freedom in their bikes. And I was thinking about how there was a comment someone made about how they had never been to the Smithsonian. You know, these kids that were from DC, and they had never been to the museums. I just thought, oh, what a shame, you know, like how can we bring that out into the streets?
Yeah.
There was a really important therapy center around the corner from this location, and they had one of the only Japanese No theaters in the country at that time. And it was just such a cool place for, you know, these, you know, DC residents that had mental and developmental challenges to go and feel empowered by putting on these costumes, you know, these royal costumes and doing these plays. I just thought it was so inspiring. Anyway, I was
It's one of my
assigned
all-time favorites.
Thank you.
Like the fact that they're on bikes with no masks, like I don't know where that came from. But it's
It came
like,
from the Art and Drama Therapy Institute. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you know, the work is always site specific, and
Yeah.
you know, I'm fortunate to have specific touch points to pull from for these projects. I mean, put me in Ohio or something like that. Probably won't have the same kind of luck, but
you'd find
you
something.
do. Okay, we're running out of time, so I'm gonna speed it up. I wanted to catch the vocal on this. Uh-oh, uh-oh. Uh-oh. Oh.
Oh, snap.
Oh, God, it's so good. Oh, it hurts. Anyway, so the next one, 12-inch dance records. I'm going to go pretty fast through this because I've squirreled away a lot of time here. So 12-inch dance records was in the technically the west side of DuPont Circle from in the 90s, and it later was converted into DJ Hut, but it's where everyone went to go buy the vinyl. I was looking for photos of the place, but just I didn't have enough time to put that together. But Sam Burns
Shout out
worked
to
there,
Sam, yeah.
along with so many other people, and
Yeah.
he was always the person, like you went in and he'd be like, yeah, he would be like, you have to buy this record. You know, and he would just hand you this record, and you're just like, you know, you're here. But he's a beloved DJ in our house music scene who had passed away suddenly last March. So there was one sort of church service, quote unquote, at 18th Street Lounge where he had a residency on Sundays after he passed away. I couldn't make it. It made me crazy. But like, I thought there would be more, but the pandemic shut everything down right after that. So they had that one time, and I saw some of the IG stories that just gave me goosebumps. Like, I'm so glad that happened. But anyway, so he worked there. So this is a project from 2011. It's my first publicly commissioned mural, and it was funded through the Arts Commission, through the USDC project. It's created, I always like to investigate who's looking at this, right? So this is a playground across the street. I said, obviously this is for the kids. So let me create a design that is composed of all these different elements. It's fun to see, but maybe over time you see something different, right? So some production shots here. Shout out to Metas, he's in Thailand now. Corey, this is the final product. You know, it's over time, you'll see it says every day I see something new. It's obviously for the kids, it's fun, it's poppy, it's got colors, it's got these simple forms, but if you're an adult and you're looking at this, you can tell that there are some things that you can recognize like Malcolm X Park, dancers and drummers, the yoga folks there, El Salvador, Ethiopia, are some of our biggest ethnic populations here in DC. Julia's Empanadas, DC Hardcore, 12-inch dance records in the upper left-hand corner. That was a shout out. I used to go there all the time, but music, culture, nature, things that you might see around Adams Wedding. So let me bump on down to that one more. DC Armory, Ultra World Raves. Damn.
It was a different time.
So there's a guy named Lonnie Fisher out of Baltimore, amazing promoter. He created the most amazing experiences that I've ever witnessed. He booked, basically, he threw a lot of parties, but there was one in Baltimore called Starscape that ran for, I guess, maybe a decade or so. But it was composed of all of these different genres, all of these different stages and areas. And it was such a rich time for that music, underground electronic dance music. Out in the stars, out in nature, and hearing this bass music, these frequencies, and you're connecting with all these people, and it's so beautiful. And anyway, he threw a party the day after Thanksgiving, I want to say.
Yeah, the Saturday after Thanksgiving.
Yeah, and everyone was pissed they had to go out of town, for Thanksgiving because they always missed it. But in the DC Armory, which is this huge space you can see in this photo with wooden floors, and I firmly believe that there's energy in that wood, that resonates and these things happen. And you could just feel it. But this was my first introduction to, it's kind of a weird word, but rave culture. Basically these large parties where there's underground electronic dance music that's played, and there's a culture and there's respect. And oddly, not a lot of alcohol for those parties, no fights. I mean, how many, I don't remember what the capacity was of the DC Army, because there was a bottom, there was a basement too. We had people selling clothes, some a womb, sculpture that you crawl into and take a nap in. There was drum and bass in the basement. And it was just such a really, really beautiful experience. People from all walks of life were there. What I enjoyed the most was seeing the security guards. We were just
getting down. That was the best.
And they were like, what in the hell? What is happening? Because people kind of walk out sometimes. And then you would see them in the corner at the end of the night. They were getting down.
They were, DC locals representing in the security crew, but yeah, they got into it.
Anyway, so all of this influenced my work in ways, I can't even describe, but it's that energy of connecting and sharing that communication of movement and unseen, unspoken energy. Shout out to Bismarck on the bottom here, RIP. Simon Kim over here, Sinu, yoga master over here. A couple of DC heads. I used to go out and irritate the heck out of people because I would take photos with my regular camera, and the flash would just be such a buzzkill for everyone. But I did it still. And I would these are actually photos from the dance floor. This is a remix of this one. This is actually my favorite. Shout out to Biz again in the upper left. But some of these pictures were taken 411 New York Avenue, all these other venues. But it's just about that spirit, and catching these forms, these specific forms in these moments in time, We got about 2 minutes left before we should probably wrap up. But here's some other music-based things. I painted the Gold Stage at Afropunk, I think in 2017, which was just amazing. A really cool opportunity. DJ Underdog and Jazz Sonic and Native Son were also DJing on the Gold Stage. So it was definitely DC representation. Jessica Amazon was with me and Jamila, they were both my guests. And this was a poster I did for, shout out to the sound systems always, but a poster I did for one of their parties in DC. Shout out to Underdog too on the bike here with the mask. And a couple of other things. Modi and his crew with the Electro Music Festival, I did the branding for 2013 and 2015, back in the day when Travis Scott was all the way down on the fourth line. And Arijit helped me with that gift too. Did some gift flyers and stuff like that. It was pretty cool. Labelle Hip Hop, shout out to the Moroccan family in Belgium, Fatima and and Rival, and you know, all of those great folks. This is the International Women's Hip Hop Festival, happens yearly, and they just do amazing work. It's a family of folks from Morocco, and they're just really, really good people. So shout out to them. And I didn't get the chance to play as much music as I wanted, but you know, next time, you know.
What I will say is, if you wanted to play one more song, I don't think anybody would hate that. If there was one that you kind of wanted to play before we get questions from the audience.
Yeah.
And if anyone has any questions, please send them in now.
Okay, let me find something without a long intro.
Okay. There is one question in the Q&A while you're doing that, and I think it's kind of a question for both of you because you both kind of work in the space. But Abigail says, your recounting of DC history shows how many spaces DC has lost. This is happening in other cities as well. How do you envision physical spaces for artists, musicians, and organic collaboration when economic pressure makes these spaces too expensive?
Baltimore. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we're gonna have to look out like abandoned steel mill towns, and because I don't know the answer. I mean, that's a dialogue that we really need to have as a community, because it's a big problem, you know.
It also speaks to like shifting culture too. Like these spaces reflect a need for communal culture, communal art, communal music. And oftentimes as cities gentrify and become more affluent, there's also a bit of isolation that comes with that. Like people move away from communal needs, which we were talking about earlier, comes out of necessity a lot of the times, right? And so you get people who like are almost anti public music, public art, public spaces being used for that end. So it is definitely a challenge. Like even if you find the spaces, can they survive? We had nothing positive to say about that. I'm sorry.
That's not a bad thing. It's very true, right? It's very true that these spaces are being lost, and you know, a lot of times those spaces were in these kind of abandoned buildings that may have been falling apart, right? And obviously in a city like DC, those are few and far between these days. We're just losing them to like hyper gentrification.
Yeah. I mean, what I can say, it's not like the cool angle of like underground warehouse parties, but where I live right now happens to be across the street from a university, and there is a local, like the community group here, the neighborhood group. They've organized to set up a public space here where there's like regular music once a week in the summer, things like that. And you see that if you take like the littlest seed and put it out there, you know, you get all generations come out. The music ranges from like, you know, more beat driven music to jazz artists to whatever. And it does bring it back when you take it out of like the cool factor and just see like it's valuable to just put it out there for everybody.
Yeah.
You do see how vibrant it can be and how necessary. So if there's ways to like bring the community into it, you know, community organizations, things like that, churches, whatever, like just have events. I feel like you can start seeding things in that way.
Yeah. And someone did mention in the Q&A, they asked, do you think outdoor spaces are the answer? Spaces like Malcolm X Park in Washington, DC.
I really do. I mean, in large part because of COVID, and things are going that way already. It's like all of a sudden we're Europe. You know, you walk down, you know, downtown Bethesda, like the streets closed off, and like there's just like what they call terraces or, you know, outdoor seating everywhere. But yeah, like, and maybe that goes back to rave culture, right? Like, or Woodstock, or like just taking over. I mean, the poor animals out there, but like, you know, taking over those, not taking, but borrowing those spaces for a time to create those experiences. I mean, it does take a lot of cooperation from local law enforcement and folks like that, which are probably not really too keen on stuff like that happening. But I mean, there are ways to build some bridges there. You know,
If I could make one suggestion, open your windows and just play music at your windows. Like one of the things I used to love about walking to our studio was walking down that one apartment building on N Street, and you'd have like the salsa just playing out those windows every night. Like that was a mainly Latin community that lived there, maybe El Salvadorian. And just the fact that you could hear music without it being a thing. Or when I moved to Brooklyn, you would hear just house music. Like cars would just, I lived in Bed-Stuy, and just house music was a thing. It was so part of the culture here. And it wasn't like you went out somewhere. It was just either coming out of a window or coming out of a car, you know? And so like, don't wait for events, just play, just fill your space with art and music as much as you can, and see what that catalyzes.
Let it be part of your life.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, that was great. We are kind of at the end of our time. So Sita, if you want to play us out with the song, and then we'll kind of end the program. But thank you both for being here and being a part of this conversation. It was wonderful. It was a great way to spend our Tuesday evening. Thank you for all of you who attended and kind of hung out with us tonight. Please, if you guys want to like drop your Instagram handles in the chat, or just say them out loud here so people can find you, please do. But Sita, I'll let you play us out.
Hey, there you go, Reem.
Oh snap.
On the most hazardous and dangerous and greatest adventure on which
All-time favorite ever hip-hop track. Thank you.
Self-Lord and master shall bring disaster to evil factors. Demonic chapters shall be captured by kings through the storms of days after, and to the earth from the sun through triple darkness to blast you with a force that can't be compared to any firepower. For its mind power shared, the brainwave causes vessels to circulate like constellations reflect at night off the lake. Word to the Father and Mother Earth.
Stay on grits and gravy.
Oh man. Yes. Just all of it coming together.
The righteous man sacrifice to get what they deserve. Cannot afford to be confined to a cell. Brainwave swell. Well. Experience the best teacher. Thoughts will spring like street sweepers. Little daddy street preacher. Illustrious feature. Narrator you select. Accompanied by deck plus the DJ you respect. 7.5 combined over the front line. The 10%ers promoting slander in the airtime. Bear in mind, Jews.
Shout out to Gangstar.
Sharp plays, heavenly praise, and dues are paid. Above the crowds, above the clouds, with the sound.
R.I.P. Guru.
Infinite skills create miracles. Warrior spiritual. Above the clouds, raining down, holding it down. Yeah, I leave scientists mentally scarred. Triple extra large, wild like rock stars who smash guitars. Poison bars from the guards, bust holes in your mirage. Captain charge, take them down like the riot squad. Invade the zone, ruin like ancient Rome. I spare the universe and return to earth to claim my throne. The maker, owner, plus soul controller. Ayatollah, rest in the sky, the clouds my sofa. Stare like
We seem to be lingering. So that might mean that I could maybe play another one.
I was just letting you play out the song,
Okay.
but it is that time. So thank you both. Have a
Thanks for
great
having us,
night,
Miguel.
everybody. This was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Blessings.
That's,
Thanks, Reach.
thanks.